Ladies and gentlemen, as a consequence of President Trump's tariffs on Chinese imports, right this very moment, the Chinese currency is absolutely collapsing. Now, as many of you may know, yesterday afternoon, President Trump increased his tariffs on China by 104% because China decided to escalate their tariffs on the United States. You see, China must have thought that their britches were just a little bit bigger than they actually are, because as it would turn out, declaring a trade war against the world's largest economy, the United States of America, isn't actually such a good idea after all. You see, as things stand right now, China's currency is at its lowest valuation in over 15 years, and it just keeps getting lower. But okay, so why is all of this really happening? Well, take a look at this recent breakdown from President Trump's Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
I think it was a big mistake, this Chinese escalation, because they're playing with a pair of twos. Traditionally, if you look at the history of the trade negotiations, we are the deficit country. So what do we lose by the Chinese raising tariffs on us? We export 1/5 to them of what they export to us. So that is a losing hand for them.
Now, folks, Secretary Bessent brings up a really great point. Every single year, China exports around 5 times as much to us as we export to them. The ratio is around 5-to-1. So what that means is that if China decides to go tariff for tariff against President Trump and the United States, they are going to lose because ultimately they're getting hit with 5 times the tariff value that we are. And then also, on top of that entire dynamic, one of President Trump's primary goals in dealing with China is to bring home manufacturing back into the United States of America, which actually means maintaining tariffs on China in the long term. So really, what all of this means is that pretty much right now, China is in a lose-lose situation. No matter what happens, there's no avoiding the fact that they are going to lose some of their manufacturing dominance. That much is for certain, but also, if they want to continue to sell their goods to American consumers, and they do, they're going to have to pay up big time. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is why President Trump is so confident in his negotiations with China, and this is why the Chinese currency is collapsing right now. Here's the reality. The Chinese financial elite know that they are going to lose this tariff war against President Trump and the United States, and as a consequence, they are going to lose a lot of power and money. In fact, take a look at what President Trump himself had to say about all of this just last night.
Right now, China's paying a 104% tariff. Think of it, 104%. Now, it sounds ridiculous, but they charged us for many items 100%, 125%. Many countries have. They've ripped us off left and right. But now it's our turn to do the ripping.
You hear that, folks? The days of China ripping off American consumers have come to an end. Now, we are the ones doing the ripping. The reality is, for decades now, various other countries around the world, but primarily China, have been guilty of ripping off the American economy. And so finally, after years of all talk and no action, President Trump is actually doing something about it. In fact, check out what Stephen Miller had to say about all of this yesterday afternoon. Take a look.
Let's stay focused on the most important fundamentals here, which is that because of President Trump's action to protect and defend our national security and our manufacturing base, the entire world that has abused and misused and mistreated the United States is now coming to the table to establish a new and fair global trading framework. This is something people have talked about doing, they've dreamed about doing, they've thought about doing for half a century. And especially over the last 25 years, since the trading abuses have reached a chronic point for America's economic and national security. And now that long-awaited national dialogue and negotiation is actually happening. So countries that have run up these multi-trillion-dollar trade deficits over many years are coming to the table, meeting with the president's economic team, people like Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick and Jameson Greer, to determine what they can do to lower their trade barriers, reduce their trade deficits, purchase more American manufactured goods, and end the systemic unfair treatment of America. At the same time, the president is focusing on the number one bad global actor responsible for these trading imbalances, responsible for the erosion of our manufacturing base, responsible for the undermining of our domestic and national security, and that's China, because their industrial policies in a very targeted way have focused on dismantling the American industrial base. And that's the reason why so many of our factories and plants have been shuttered over all these years. President Trump is correcting that.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is what all of this is about. Rectifying these absolutely egregious trade imbalances that decades of incompetent American leadership has allowed to happen, in conjunction with countries around the world looking to pick the flesh from our country's bones, and Lord knows they have. And so, folks, as things stand right this very moment, these egregious imbalances are already being rectified. Take a look.
And for those of you that want to know the tariffs, you've been hearing about tariffs, we're taking in almost $2 billion a day in tariffs. $2 billion a day. And we're doing very well.
You hear that, folks? President Trump's tariffs are already bringing in $2 billion per day. And so, of course, if you multiply that out, that comes to around $730 billion per year. And you know what? President Trump is just getting started. So, folks, here's the truth. Not only is China's economy pretty much imploding right now under the weight of President Trump's tariffs, but also this entire situation sends a very clear message to every other country around the globe. If you try to play hardball with President Trump and the United States of America, you will lose. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so that is why so far, just in the last 3 days, over 70 countries around the globe have reached out to the Trump administration to try to negotiate their way out of all of these reciprocal tariffs. Because, ladies and gentlemen, here's the reality. None of these other countries want to end up like China. Now, folks, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this. So, hey, if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be a wrap for this video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there. Hey, if you guys enjoyed the daily news coverage, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton with my daily struggle here on YouTube. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.